congratulations, by the way. You guys closed that 130 unit hotel out in Townsend, Tennessee, with Blake and Curtis and them. I think Blake is hosting a hotel conference out there, and he asked me to come speak. So I'm thinking about coming out there. I believe it's in September. Is that going to actually be at the hotel?
It is, yeah.
Interesting. So will you guys be done with the renovation by then?
We'll at least be done with enough of the renovation for the guests to stay in the nice rooms. So we're hoping that it'll all be done. But for sure, the wedding venue will be updated, and at least 3 of the 8 buildings will be done. And then we'll have the gym will already be in, the hot tubs and pools and everything will be all cleaned up and actually operational. So it might not be 100%, but it'll be good enough that anyone coming out there will stay in nice rooms. It's funny, we went out there, when you talk, the whole boutique hotel game is so much different than like multifamily, and in a lot of ways, like when people buy and think of a value add multifamily property, they think of like cockroaches. But when you buy a value add boutique hotel,
do you think bed bugs?
Well, you think, yeah, that's valid. That's my non-boutique, that thing. Yeah. But like, it's actually in really good shape. It's just outdated. It's a property that just hasn't been updated in 20, 30 years. But we're staying there, and I'm like, do we have to update this room? Like, I would just, like, this is better than half the hotels I stay in right now. We're just going to make it nicer, and then it'll bring in more money. But it's currently, like, when you talk renovation, it's in really pretty decent shape as is. And that seems to be a lot of these hotels. It's like, they're not really in bad shape or anything you wouldn't stay in. They're just operationally not where, maybe not every hotel, but a lot of them, it just seems like there's operational issues, inefficiencies. And so, like this one, the plan is, we're doing a $3 million renovation, but most of that is into like adding a gym, boosting the wedding venue, touching up like cosmetics and fancy stuff. But the vast majority of the value add is actually just putting it on Booking, Expedia, Travelocity, Google Ads, having a social media.
Was the prior ownership not doing that?
No, they're not on. They don't even have, like, they didn't have a social media. They have no Google ads running, and they weren't on anything other than, no, they weren't even on booking.com. I don't think they were on anything. They just had their website and listed on Google. And it's, like it's funny. The only social media, like anything about the hotel was a single YouTube video. And it's this guy who I guess reviews stuff in the Smokies. And so he goes and he reviews the hotel, and he's like, wow, everything's amazing. I like this place, all this stuff. And then at the very end of the video, he shows the bathroom, and he's like, but I'm going to ask for a refund and stay somewhere else because the bathroom's filthy. And so that was the issue, was the guy had, at one time, Blake went out there on a Saturday, and they had 2 people on site for 130 units. And I'm like, you can't maintain a 130 door hotel with 2 staff members on a weekend. Like, they couldn't even turn beds. And so that's basically what we're working on, is like, all right, we just got to get the operations where they need to be, clean rooms, new reviews. I think the place is going to crush it.
Yeah. Where did the prior ownership go wrong there? Because I believe, if my memory serves correctly, Blake was on the show a while back. This is like maybe 7 months ago when he first got it under contract. And he was saying that like the prior ownership got foreclosed on, I believe. So
I think they were there. It was somewhere in that process. They still owned it when we closed. It's funny because it's, stereotypes exist for a reason, right? And if you're in the hotel space, eventually you're going to stumble across the last name Patel, which is, there's actually Facebook groups. There's a Facebook group.
Yeah,
that's
it's huge.
Named, it's like
the one we're buying right now, that's the last name.
It's like 52,000 people in this Facebook group, and it's called Patel Hotel Motel. And it's like one of the biggest.
And they all have the same last name?
Yeah. So it's like, India's so class-based, from what I understand, that they kind of like in the family, they seem to get into the same industry. And Patel is the Indian last name that by and large owns hotels. So we bought our hotel from a Patel, the one that I own in Missouri, and totally disconnected. This one was owned by. And so kind of the stereotype within that community is they buy a hotel, they essentially move in as, on-site management. And I don't want to say they suck the life out of it, but essentially they just kind of run it until it is at a point where they sell it. And rather than putting all the money back into CapEx and upgrading and upkeeping, they basically just keep the wheels on and then they sell. And that's essentially what happened. The gentleman who owned it was on-site management, wasn't paying a manager. He did a lot of the stuff himself, but he had no knowledge of, third-party bookings. Nothing was listed on Airbnb, VRBO. I mean, just basic minimum stuff that we all understand now as operators wasn't doing any of it. It was just old school. I've got a Google website. You can book the hotel on my platform or show up here and drive through and ask if we have vacancy.
That's
So,
crazy, dude.
yeah.
I'm not going to get too much into the weeds until we close, but it is crazy to think that last name owns so many hotels out there. I'd love to actually kind of like dig into that story and kind of see how it all came to fruition. That'd probably be an interesting conversation to have. Maybe I'll have to bring on one of these sellers on the podcast sometime.
Like,
You know?
how do all of your brothers own so many hotels?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, interesting stuff. So that's cool, man. I'm excited to check out that property in September if I go out there and speak. Should be an interesting conference, being that it's actually at a property that's being repositioned. So that'll be cool. So tell me more about what you're doing in the space outside of the hotel stuff. You mentioned a duplex that you just bought. Tell me more about what you own.
Yeah, I own, like when you asked me beforehand, my answer when people say, what do you invest, is kind of like anything I can hold on to for a long time. At this point, I am a controlling interest in I'm only a 10% owner in the RV park, but I've got a 28 pad RV park. And then the rest of it, I'm controlling interest in a 40 unit hotel that's not boutique at all, just traditional old school. It was a Comfort Inn that got foreclosed on. We took over in Podunk, Missouri. And then 2 apartment complexes that are in the same town, 23 and a 15 key apartments. And then I own probably 12, I think right now. I've been selling a few, but I think 12 still residential properties, 1 to 4 units. One of those is an Airbnb. The rest are all long-term. I think that's the majority on like having like an actual P&L that I run and everything. And then I've raised for and been a part of as a GP 3 other transactions, like 1,040 doors, something like that. But the ownership percentages there are so small that it's funny. I see guys online talk about like, oh, I bring in this much money in rent. And I'm like, man, I should play that game. I'm a 1/3% owner of a $70 million complex. Can I claim that as gross income? Like,
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I bring in $100K and I don't see any of it, but
Yeah.
no, but I mean, so kind of dabble in everything. My main, I guess, shtick is I was broke as all get out when I started investing. So everything I did, I've never put more than 15% down on a single property. I mean, it's all, seller financing or partial seller financing, or somehow creatively getting the bank to cover a lot more than they thought they would. My local lender will do 15% down on everything. And then anything that he doesn't buy is somehow, creative. So I go and find deals that, I get the seller to carry the down payment and I have my bank do the rest and I don't have to touch anything. That duplex we closed, I brought 3,000 to the closing table. I just, and I'm kind of at a point where because of social media, people will bring deals to me either because they think I'll buy it or because they think, hey, I've got this great deal, but I don't have the capital. And then I kind of put the capital together for people and I get a stake in the deal for essentially putting people together.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's
It's
like
funny how social media will work that way. People think, oh, I don't want to put my stuff out there, but it's not just, the ability to raise capital, but it's the ability to bring in good deals, hire good people, have opportunities brought your way. It's so much more than just one aspect, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually, I joke about this. I was on a podcast with Pineda and I was like, would you rather lose your brand or lose all your real estate? And I'm like, dude, in a heartbeat, toss the houses out. I'll buy more. I'm keeping the brand. If you look at like Mr. Beast, he's not a real estate guy. That dude started a chocolate company, a burger company, like all because he had a brand. And so I think like the brand and the online presence is infinitely more valuable than the hard asset, at least from a getting off the ground phase.
That's an interesting one for me because it took me 5 years to build all the real estate. And then it took me like 2 years to build the brand. So if you look at it in that regard, I could rebuild the brand in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
but with the brand, then you could do the real estate quicker. I don't know, but that is a good point.
It's up there.
But you're right because the power of the brand is whatever business vehicle you want to get into or investment vehicle, you're gonna have a clientele. You're gonna have customers before you even start it.
Yeah.
Look at LeBron James or Joe Rogan. Some of these names, Conor McGregor, starts Proper 12 whiskey and sells it for $600 million like a couple years later. So why? Because he's got the brand, he's got the eyeballs, he's got the attention. I guarantee if he wanted to start like another liquor company, he probably could do the same thing.
Now he's an actor.